Well, let's get rolling with our quick look back, because this is a story that we reported on last week, if you remember, and that's the Cannon Hinnant story. Now, he was a young man, really a boy, in North Carolina, 5 years old, and he was outside in front of his house on his bicycle, and his neighbor, Darius Sessoms, who was a 25-year-old man, comes walking out of his house, walks over to him, puts a gun up to his head, and shoots him. A 5-year-old kid on his bicycle. Kills him instantly. It's a terrible story. It's a terrible story. He added dimension to it. Now, you may or may not have heard about this story in the news. Because
I barely caught it.
It's
it
not
wasn't on
been
there much.
I mean, can you imagine? I mean, compare the media reaction to a story like this to the media reaction to stories of other people's deaths. Let's say person's death at the hand of the police. I mean, those stories are huge. I can think of a few examples from recent history, and they've been huge stories. I mean, we've had kind of like ongoing story. We had funerals all across the country for Mr. Floyd, and you know, okay, I accept that, and I think his killing was wrong. But this story they don't want to talk about because it doesn't fit into the media narrative, right? The media narrative is that white people and white police officers are killing black people. And in this case, this is a black person who shot a young white boy. Now, there's no racial component to this. I think it's important to say, as far as we're aware, there's absolutely no racial component to this. The father of the boy, father's name was Austin Hinnant, and his son Cannon is the one who was killed. He was actually somewhat friendly with his neighbor in that he used to go over and check on his neighbor's elderly parents. So Mr. Sessoms' elderly parents, he'd go and check on him for Darius Sessoms. He had him over for dinner. In fact, apparently he was over for dinner like the Friday night before Darius Sessoms came over and shot the young man, the boy, that weekend. I mean, it kind of boggles the mind. You think about it, having dinner with somebody one night, and they're presenting in one way. But the point I was going to make is the father himself said, look, there was never any kind of racial tension at all in our interactions, in our relationship. I never got any hint of that. And so there's no reason to believe for any reason that this has anything to do with race any more than a lot of the other killings and things that we see that don't have to do with race. There's really no reason to believe that unless you just go with the theory that, the police are systemically racist, and so anything that they do is a product of some kind of racial motivation, which is what the media has tried to tell us about law enforcement, which is not true. But like I said, the media doesn't want to touch this story because it doesn't fit the narrative. But what a tragedy. A couple little things. The parents want the death penalty, and, I mean, you can't blame them, right? I mean, who wouldn't want the death penalty in a case like this? I want the death penalty in this case. As far as I'm aware, there's really no factual dispute about what happened. I don't think it's not a case of mistaken identity or anything like that. The reports that I'm getting are the guy was hyped up on some kind of drugs and may have been hallucinating. Well, too bad, buddy. You know what? You're gonna get some new drugs now, and these drugs are gonna help you sleep, and that's it. And that's what should happen to this bum, Darius Sessoms. But what a tragedy! Such a sad story. They put up a GoFundMe page, which is all the rage nowadays. Whenever anything happens to you whatsoever, you got to put up a GoFundMe page. Now, in this case, though, they were only looking for, I think, they're obviously a very humble family. They're not wealthy. You can just tell. So they put up a GoFundMe. I think they were looking for about $5,000 to help with funeral expenses and other things. You know that their GoFundMe page has gotten donations of over $560,000 in a week. Whew. So people are really stepping up to try to help this young family. And certainly it's tragic. I am 100% sure that they wouldn't have traded their son for the money, but they are going to get a lot of money from this GoFundMe page.
What city was this in?
This was in Wilson, North Carolina, so up near Raleigh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Anyway, that's a story you will not hear on the mainstream news. That's a story that could easily be dominating the news right now. I mean, it could be on 24/7. That story has so much emotion tied up in it, and it so triggers emotion in the audience that it's perfect for the media. It's exactly what they want, right? If it bleeds, it leads, right? Isn't that the old phrase? So that's what they want. They want tragedies. They want violence. They want crime. That's what the media feeds off of. They get the most audience reaction, the most audience engagement. So just ask yourself why they are talking about that story. And the answer to the question, I believe, and maybe you agree with us or me, I believe it's because it doesn't fit their narrative. And they're only going to show you stories that fit their narrative because they're trying to get you to think about the world in a certain way. Now, I'm resistant to that. I don't want anybody to try and tell me what to think and how to think. I'd be happy for you to share stories with me of all different kinds, but then I want to be allowed to make up my own mind about what I think. And the media doesn't want to let you do that. So just recognize that. But big picture, it's a terrible tragedy, very, very sad story. We'll probably never know the motive, and there probably really wasn't a motive. That's the really... I mean, it's sad no matter whether there was a motive or no motive, but it sounds like the motive was simply drug hallucination. Thank you for listening to the Morgan Streetman Show. We hope you enjoyed what you heard, and if you did, please click like and subscribe to help us out. And remember that we recommend that you exercise your brain at least once a week.